I'm Timothy, 68 years old, retired architect from Chicago, with a lifetime of building dreams for others. 3 years ago, my wife Patricia passed away, leaving me alone in the house we shared for 4 decades. My daughter Amanda and her family were planning their dream vacation to Hawaii, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could join them. I never expected her response would change everything. "Dad, you're too old to fly with us. Just take care of the house while we're gone." Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt underestimated because of your age. For 40 years, I poured my heart and soul into designing buildings that would outlast me. From sleek downtown offices to cozy family homes, my signature style became known throughout Chicago's architectural community. I won awards, mentored young architects, and built a reputation I was proud of. But nothing compared to the joy I felt designing and building our family home 35 years ago. Patricia and I met in college. She was studying literature while I was deep into architectural drafting. We were opposites in many ways. She was spontaneous and artistic while I preferred careful planning and precision. Somehow those differences made us perfect together. After graduation and a small wedding, we saved every penny until we could afford a modest plot of land in a growing suburb of Chicago. I spent months designing our home, incorporating Patricia's dreams of large windows to let in natural light and built-in bookshelves for her ever-growing collection. The day we broke ground was one of the happiest of my life. I supervised every aspect of the construction, often picking up tools myself on weekends. When we finally moved in, Patricia cried tears of joy. "You built us more than a house, Timothy," she said. "You built us a future." A year later, Amanda was born. Our home echoed with her laughter as she grew. I can still picture her learning to walk across our living room, her tiny hands gripping the coffee table I had crafted myself. As she grew older, I converted part of the basement into a playroom. Later, a study space, and eventually a teenager's retreat. The house grew and changed with our family. Amanda was always Daddy's little girl. I attended every dance recital, science fair, and parent-teacher conference. Even during my busiest professional years, I made sure she knew she was my priority. I taught her to ride a bike in our driveway and helped her with geometry homework at our kitchen table. When she left for college, Patricia and I converted her bedroom into a guest room, but kept her childhood memorabilia carefully preserved in custom-built cabinets. After Amanda married Brian, a successful financial analyst, they visited often at first. The birth of Jack 15 years ago and Sophie 12 years ago made our home lively again, with the sounds of grandchildren during holidays and summer breaks. I built a treehouse in the backyard that Jack declared was better than anything in the neighborhood. Sophie and I spent hours gardening together in Patricia's beloved flower beds. But after Patricia was diagnosed with cancer, everything changed. The 3 years of her illness were brutal, with treatments that seemed worse than the disease itself. Amanda visited, of course, but always seemed uncomfortable, as if her mother's mortality was something she couldn't face. Patricia noticed it too, but made excuses for our daughter. "She has her own family to worry about," she'd say after another brief, tense visit. In her final weeks as Patricia grew weaker, she made me promise something. "Don't become bitter, Timothy," she whispered one night. "Whatever happens after I'm gone, choose joy." I nodded, fighting tears, not fully understanding what she meant. I would understand all too well later. After Patricia passed, the house felt impossibly empty. 45 years of marriage ended, leaving me alone with memories in every room. Amanda helped with the funeral arrangements, but seemed eager to return to her life afterward. Her visits became less frequent, phone calls shorter. When she did visit with the family, I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She would make comments about how I loaded the dishwasher or maintained the yard, things Patricia had always handled. When I mentioned traveling to an architectural conference in New York, Amanda frowned and said, "At your age, Dad, is that really necessary?" I was only 65 then, still in good health despite my grief. The grandchildren still seemed to enjoy visiting, though their parents limited our time together. Jack would ask about my architectural projects, genuinely interested in the models I kept in my home office. Sophie would curl up in Patricia's reading chair, somehow knowing it was a way to keep her grandmother's spirit alive. I tried joining them for dinner at their home in the suburbs once a month, bringing homemade desserts Patricia had taught me to bake. I noticed Amanda would often rearrange the table settings I helped with or redo tasks I had completed. Brian would exchange knowing glances with her, as if my competence was something to be humored rather than respected. Still, I persisted, hoping to maintain our family bonds. I joined social groups at the community center, made new friends, and even dated briefly. Though no one could fill Patricia's place in my heart. I remained active, swimming 3 times a week and taking long walks through the neighborhood. Despite Amanda's perception, I was far from being elderly and infirm. The house remained my anchor, filled with memories of a happier time. Each night I would sit in the living room, looking at the fireplace Patricia and I had designed together, feeling both comforted and haunted by the life we'd shared within these walls. It was Jack who let slip about the Hawaii vacation. During one of his rare visits to help me set up a new computer, he mentioned casually, "I've been practicing snorkeling in the pool for our trip to Maui." "Maui?" I asked, pausing from connecting cables. "That sounds wonderful. When are you all going?" Jack looked uncomfortable, realizing he'd mentioned something I wasn't supposed to know. Spring break. Mom's been planning it for months." The revelation stung. Amanda hadn't mentioned any vacation plans during our brief weekly phone calls. After Jack left, I sat in my study looking at family photos and wondering why my daughter would keep such plans secret. Perhaps I thought optimistically they were planning to surprise me with an invitation. That Sunday, when the family came for their monthly dinner at my house, I prepared Patricia's famous lasagna and set the table with our best china. During dessert, I casually brought up the subject. "So, Jack mentioned you're planning a trip to Hawaii. That sounds wonderful." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Amanda shot Jack a look that made him shrink in his chair. Brian suddenly became very interested in his apple pie. "Yes, Dad," Amanda finally said. "We've been saving for this trip for a while. The kids have never seen Hawaii, and we thought spring break would be perfect." Hawaii was always on Patricia's wish list, I said, smiling at the memory. "We never made it there together." Sophie perked up. "You could come with us, Grandpa? You could show us how to build the best sand castles." For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. I looked at Amanda, whose face had tightened into a forced smile. "That's very sweet, honey," she said to Sophie. "But Grandpa probably doesn't want to deal with long flights and all that walking in the heat." "Actually," I said carefully, "I think it sounds wonderful. I'm in good health, and I've been saving for retirement travel. I'd be happy to contribute to the costs." Brian cleared his throat. "It's a pretty active itinerary, Timothy. Hiking, snorkeling, lots of moving around between islands." "I swim 3 times a week and walk 5 miles daily," I reminded him. "I'm probably in better shape than you are, Brian." I tried to keep my tone light, but I could feel tension building. Amanda put down her fork with a clink against the china. "Dad, you're too old to fly with us. Just take care of the house while we're gone." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Sophie gasped slightly. Jack studied his plate intensely. Brian looked away. "I see," I said, working to keep my voice steady. "Well, that's certainly direct." "I didn't mean it like that." Amanda backpedaled, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It's just that we planned this as immediate family time. The kids are getting older and we want to create some special memories before Jack goes to college. And I'm not family. The words escaped before I could stop them. Of course you are. Brian jumped in, his voice overly hearty. It's just the logistics, you know. The reservations are already made for 4, and someone needs to water the plants and check on things here. So I'm the house sitter, I said flatly. Dad, don't be dramatic. Amanda sighed. You know that's not what we meant. But it was exactly what they meant. As the conversation awkwardly moved to other topics, I went through the motions of being a good host. Inside, though, something had broken. That night after they left, I wandered through my house, Patricia's house, our house. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since her funeral, I wept openly. Not just for her absence, but for the family bonds that seemed to be disintegrating without her. I remembered all the times I'd rearranged important meetings to attend Amanda's school events. The business trips I'd shortened to be home for her birthdays. The countless ways I'd put family first, always believing it was being stored like treasure that would sustain me in my later years. You're too old. The words echoed in my head as I tried to sleep. Too old for what? Too old to be included. Too old to be respected. Too old to be loved. As dawn broke, I was still awake, Patricia's final advice echoing in my mind. Don't become bitter, Timothy. Whatever happens after I'm gone, choose joy. I wasn't feeling particularly joyful, but I knew she was right about avoiding bitterness. That path would only destroy whatever family connections remained. Still, something had to change. I couldn't continue being the convenient grandfather who was only welcomed when needed and dismissed when inconvenient. The morning after Amanda's devastating words, I called my oldest friend, Frank. We'd met in architecture school and had remained close for over 40 years. Unlike me, Frank had divorced in his 40s and lived a more unconventional life, traveling extensively and taking risks I'd always admired, but rarely emulated. She actually said, "You're too old." Frank's indignation was comforting. "Timothy, you hiked the entire Chicago Architecture Foundation Riverwalk with me last month without breaking a sweat. What does she think happens at 68? Your legs fall off." "It's not about my physical capabilities," I said, staring out my kitchen window at the garden Patricia had loved. "It's that they don't see me as a person anymore. I'm just Grandpa, a role, not a human being." "So what are you going to do about it?" Frank's question hung in the air. What indeed? For days afterward, I wandered through the house, seeing it with new eyes. In my architectural career, I'd often told clients that spaces shape our lives in profound ways. This space, this house, had shaped mine for 35 years. But now it felt more like a museum than a home. In my study, I found the original blueprints for the house carefully preserved in tubes. I unrolled them on my drafting table, tracing the lines I'd drawn so hopefully as a young man. Back then, I'd designed with a growing family in mind, play areas that could be converted as children grew spaces for entertaining room to expand. Now, most of those spaces sat empty. I remembered a phrase I often used with clients who were reluctant to make necessary changes to outdated structures. Sometimes you need to tear down to rebuild. I'd always applied it to buildings never to life. That afternoon, I walked through each room methodically, remembering. The living room where Amanda had taken her first steps. The kitchen where Patricia and I had danced on our anniversary. The small bedroom that had been converted from a nursery to a guest room, to Patricia's study. Memories layered like sediment, beautiful, but increasingly buried under the weight of time. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I sat on Patricia's side of the bed and tried to feel her presence. "What should I do?" I asked aloud, not expecting an answer, but needing to voice the question. The house creaked in response, the familiar settling sounds of an aging structure. Like me, it had good bones, but was showing its years. Unlike me, it couldn't choose its next chapter. I began researching property values in my neighborhood. Development had boomed in recent years, with older homes being purchased for their land value torn down and replaced with larger modern houses. Our lot, nearly an acre, with mature trees and excellent placement, would be highly desirable. A meeting with a real estate agent confirmed my suspicions. Mr. Reynolds, this property would sell immediately, likely above asking price, she told me after walking through the house. The location alone makes it valuable, but the architectural details you've incorporated are special. Of course, many buyers would probably renovate extensively or rebuild entirely. The thought of someone else changing Patricia's beloved garden or removing the hand-carved banister I'd installed made my chest tighten. But wasn't that what happened to all houses eventually? They evolved with new owners, new lives. Nothing stayed the same forever. I consulted my financial advisor next. Between my retirement savings, Patricia's life insurance, and the potential sale of the house, I could live very comfortably for the rest of my life, even if I chose an upscale living arrangement. That night, I sat in Patricia's reading chair, a book unopened in my lap. "I think it's time for a change," I said to the empty room. Not out of bitterness, but because holding on isn't working anymore. The next morning, I called Frank again. "Remember when we were in school and Professor Jacobs taught us about adaptive reuse of structures?" "Sure," Frank replied. "Finding new purposes for old buildings rather than demolishing them." "Why?" "I think it's time for some adaptive reuse of Timothy Reynolds," I said, feeling more energized than I had in months. "The current structure isn't functioning well in its environment." Frank's laughter warmed me. "Now that's the architect I know. So what's the new blueprint?" "I'm working on it," I replied. "But step one is determining what's structurally sound and what needs to go." In architectural terms, I was conducting a thorough assessment of my life's current design. The foundation, my values, experiences, capabilities, remained strong. But the superstructure, my daily life, my family relationships, my environment, needed serious renovation. As I drafted plans for my future, one thing became increasingly clear. The house, for all its memories and comfort, was holding me back. It represented a life that no longer existed and relationships that had fundamentally changed. Patricia was gone. Amanda had her own family and clearly saw me as peripheral to it. The neighborhood had changed, with most of my longtime neighbors moved to retirement communities or living with adult children. The house had become both my refuge and my prison. And if Amanda saw me primarily as its caretaker rather than as a person with my own dreams and needs, perhaps it was time to eliminate that role entirely. The more I considered it, the more the idea appealed to me. Not as revenge, though I couldn't deny a certain satisfaction in imagining Amanda's reaction, but as liberation. A chance to redefine myself on my own terms. Before Patricia's illness, we'd often talked about traveling during my retirement. Italy topped our list. Patricia wanted to see the art, and I wanted to study the architecture. We'd planned to rent apartments in different cities, living like locals rather than tourists. Those dreams had been shelved during her illness and after her death, but they hadn't disappeared. They'd just been buried under grief and routine. "Choose joy," Patricia had said. Perhaps it was finally time to listen. Once I made my decision, I moved quickly. Years of project management had taught me to create detailed timelines and stick to them. I divided the process into manageable phases: inventory and sorting, legal and financial preparations, property sale, and personal relocation. First, I hired a professional estate sale company. 2 efficient women came to evaluate the contents of the house, suggesting what might sell well and what should be donated or discarded. Walking through with them was harder than I'd anticipated. Each piece of furniture, each decorative item, held memories. This grandfather clock was a wedding gift from Patricia's parents, I explained as they made notes. Beautiful craftsmanship. One nodded. That will definitely sell well. Did I want it to sell well, or did I want to keep it? The question repeated with nearly every item. In the end, I decided to keep only what would fit comfortably in a much smaller living space. Patricia's reading chair, our bedroom set, selected artwork and family photographs. Everything else would go. The sorting process was emotionally exhausting, but surprisingly therapeutic. I found things I'd forgotten existed. Patricia's college journals, Amanda's baby shoes, the architectural awards I'd packed away years ago. Each item required a decision: keep, sell, donate, discard. And with each decision, I felt both grief and liberation. For the grandchildren, I set aside special items I thought they might appreciate. Someday the chess set I'd taught Jack to play with the illustrated botany books. Sophie had loved exploring family photo albums, carefully labeled with dates and names. These would be stored safely until the right time to pass them along. Meanwhile, I met with my attorney to ensure all legal aspects were handled properly. As sole owner of the house since Patricia's death, I had full rights to sell it without consulting anyone. Still, I wanted everything documented meticulously to avoid any legal challenges later. I listed the property with the real estate agent, who had initially assessed it. But with a twist, I would sell the land only after the house was demolished. This would prevent any chance of Amanda or her family trying to rescue the house before the sale was complete. The agent was surprised but adaptable. It's unusual, but not unheard of. The lot is valuable enough that it won't significantly impact the sale price, especially if you handle the demolition costs. Finding a buyer took less than a week. A developer had been purchasing properties throughout the neighborhood and was eager to add mine to his portfolio. The price offered exceeded even the agent's optimistic estimate. With the sale pending, I contacted a demolition company. The foreman was a straightforward man who asked few questions about why I wanted to level a perfectly good house. "We see it all the time," he said. "People ready for a clean slate. A clean slate." Yes, that was exactly what I wanted. Next came finding temporary housing for myself. I rented a furnished apartment in a downtown high-rise with stunning views of Lake Michigan, the opposite of my suburban setting in every way. The 6-month lease would give me time to find a permanent new home after traveling. As preparations continued, I deliberately maintained normal contact with Amanda and her family. Our weekly phone calls remained brief and superficial. When she mentioned their upcoming Hawaii trip, I wished them well and assured her I would keep an eye on their house. "Thanks, Dad," she said, the relief in her voice palpable. "I know we can count on you." The irony wasn't lost on me, but I kept my plans to myself. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. Still, I couldn't help imagining her return to find an empty lot where her childhood home had stood. Would she finally see me as more than just dependable old dad, the caretaker of memories she took for granted? The week before their departure, I invited Jack and Sophie over for one last afternoon at the house, though they didn't know it was a farewell. We made cookies in the kitchen, played chess in the living room, and I gave them a tour of my architectural studio, showing them models and drawings I'd created throughout my career. "You built all these buildings, Grandpa?" Jack asked, examining a scale model of a museum I'd designed early in my career. "I did," I replied, watching his careful handling of my work. Each one started as just an idea, a possibility. "I think I might want to be an architect," he said thoughtfully. "Mom says it's not practical, though." another small pain to file away. Architecture is very practical, Jack. It's about solving problems and creating spaces for people to live their best lives. If you're interested, I'd be happy to show you more about it sometime. His face lit up. Really? That would be awesome. For Sophie, I'd gathered seeds from Patricia's garden. These are perennials, I explained as we packaged them in small envelopes. They'll come back year after year if you plant them correctly. Like memories, she asked, with the innocence and insight unique to children. Exactly like memories, I agreed, hugging her close. When Amanda came to collect them, I invited her in, but she declined, citing errands to run before their trip. We'll see you when we get back, Dad. I've left a list of instructions for taking care of our house on the counter. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. It would be the last time she saw her childhood home, but she was too busy to come inside. The demolition was scheduled for 3 days after their departure to Hawaii. The day before they left, I moved the last of my selected belongings to storage and settled into my temporary apartment. That night, I returned to the empty house for one final walkthrough. The rooms echoed with my footsteps. Without furniture and personal items, the house already felt like someone else's. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the countertop Patricia had chosen. In Amanda's old bedroom, I stood in the center, remembering the various phases it had gone through as she grew. In our bedroom, I said a quiet goodbye to the life Patricia and I had shared within these walls. Before leaving, I placed a single rose, from Patricia's garden, on the mantel of the fireplace we'd designed together. "Thank you," I whispered to the house itself, "for sheltering us, for holding our memories, for being our home. It's time for us both to move on." The next morning, I watched from my car as the demolition crew arrived. The foreman greeted me with a handshake. "Last chance to change your mind, Mr. Reynolds." "I'm sure," I said, handing him the keys. "Proceed as planned." The first swing of the wrecking ball brought a strange mixture of emotions. Grief, certainly, but also an unexpected sense of freedom. With each wall that fell, I felt lighter. By afternoon, what had taken me months to build decades ago was reduced to rubble. The cleanup would take another day, and then the empty lot would be ready for its new owner. As I drove away for the final time, I didn't look back. Instead, I focused on the road ahead, both literally and figuratively. The next day, I would board a plane to Rome, beginning the journey Patricia and I had always planned to take together. I would carry her in my heart, instead of in the physical space we had shared. Later that evening in my new apartment, I booked the rest of my Italian itinerary. Florence, Venice, the Amalfi Coast. Places Patricia had marked in guidebooks we'd collected over the years. For the first time since her death, I felt her presence not as a ghost haunting familiar spaces, but as a companion in a new adventure. "I'm choosing joy," I told her memory as I watched the sunset over Lake Michigan. "It just looks different than I expected." Italy was everything Patricia and I had dreamed it would be. In Rome, I spent hours sketching the Pantheon, marveling at how a building constructed nearly 2,000 years ago still stood as a testament to human ingenuity. In Florence, I lost myself in the architectural details of the Duomo, climbing to the top. Despite my age, to see the city spread before me in a tapestry of terracotta roofs and Renaissance splendor. Each evening, I would find a small restaurant, away from tourist areas, practicing my rudimentary Italian with patient waiters who seemed to appreciate my efforts. I sent postcards to Jack and Sophie with architectural facts I thought might interest them, addressing them to their home, rather than including them in the cards I occasionally sent to Amanda and Brian, with brief, cheerful updates about my travels. In Venice, I met a group of retired architects from various countries who were on a specialized tour of the city's unique structural solutions to building on water. They invited me to join them, and for 3 days we explored hidden corners of the floating city, discussing load-bearing techniques and water management systems with the enthusiasm only fellow professionals could understand. Barbara, a retired architect from Australia, became a particular friend. Widowed like me, she understood the complex grief of building a new life while honoring the old. I carried Richard with me to every country I visited after he died, she explained, as we shared wine at a small cafe overlooking the Grand Canal. Not as a burden, but as a lens that helps me see beauty I might otherwise miss. Her perspective helped me reframe my own grief. I wasn't leaving Patricia behind by selling our house. I was bringing her with me in new ways, seeing the world through the love we had shared. Throughout my travels, I maintained minimal contact with Amanda and her family. Their Hawaii vacation came and went, but since they believed I was still at home, taking care of their house and mine, they had no reason to suspect anything had changed. Their occasional texts about watering plants or checking mail were met with simple assurances that all was well. Meanwhile, I was transforming. The Italian sun had tanned my skin. Walking miles of cobblestone streets daily had strengthened my legs, and the constant use of new languages and navigation skills had sharpened my mind. I felt more vital at 68 than I had in years. After a month in Italy, I returned to Chicago, not to my old neighborhood, but to my temporary downtown apartment. The view of Lake Michigan still thrilled me every morning, so different from the tree-lined street I'd gazed at for decades. I began searching for a permanent residence focusing on vibrant neighborhoods with walkable streets and diverse populations. I found it in an unexpected place, a newly renovated loft in a former printing factory on the edge of an arts district. The space featured soaring ceilings, exposed brick walls, and enormous windows. It was nothing like my traditional former home, which was exactly what appealed to me. The building housed a mix of young professionals and active retirees, with a communal rooftop garden and regular social events. Using proceeds from the sale of my property, I purchased the loft outright and worked with a designer to create a space that honored my past while embracing my future. Patricia's reading chair found a home near a window with perfect natural light. Our bedroom set was complemented by new contemporary pieces. My architectural awards, long packed away, were displayed prominently alongside a gallery wall of family photographs. I also began volunteering at a community center, teaching architectural concepts to interested teenagers. Jack's comment about wanting to be an architect had stayed with me, and while I couldn't nurture his interest directly at the moment, I could share my knowledge with other young people. Throughout this period of transformation, Frank kept me grounded with his friendship and occasional reality checks. "Have you thought about what you'll say to Amanda when she discovers what you've done?" he asked during one of our regular lunches. "I've rehearsed it 100 ways," I admitted, "but I know that whatever I plan to say will probably fly out the window when I see her face." "Just remember why you did this," Frank advised. "Not to hurt her, but to reclaim yourself." The day of reckoning came sooner than expected. Amanda and her family returned from Hawaii a day early due to a canceled tour. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. "Dad," Amanda's voice was tight with controlled panic. "I'm at the house, our house, and there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. "There's no house," her control snapped, voice rising to a shout. "It's gone." "Dad, there's nothing but an empty lot." "What happened? Were you here? Was there a fire? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Amanda," I said calmly. "There was no fire. I sold the property." The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. Finally, in a whisper, "You sold it, without telling me, without telling any of us." "Yes," I replied simply. "Where are you now? Where are you living?" I'm in a new place downtown. I've been here for over a month. Another long silence. But you were supposed to be watching our house while we were gone. I arranged for your neighbor, Mrs. Katsaros, to collect your mail and water your plants. She has a key. Your house is fine. Her voice cracked. How could you do this? That was our family home. You had no right. I had every legal right, Amanda. The house was mine. But more importantly, I had the right to make choices about my own life. Choices you made very clear you didn't think I was capable of making. What are you talking about? Too old to fly with you. Too old to do anything but stay home and watch your house. Those were your words, Amanda. They made me realize how you see me now. Not as a person with my own life to live, but as a caretaker of the past. I decided it was time for both of us to face the future. I could hear her breathing ragged and emotional. Where are you? She demanded again. We need to talk about this in person. I gave her my address, agreeing to meet her family at a cafe nearby in 2 hours. After hanging up, I sat looking out at the lake, gathering my strength for the confrontation to come. The cafe I'd chosen was busy enough to discourage a full-blown scene, but quiet enough for serious conversation. I arrived early, selecting a corner table with some privacy. When Amanda entered, flanked by Brian and the children, her face was a storm of emotions. Anger, confusion, betrayal. Jack looked uncertain, while Sophie's eyes were red from crying. Amanda spoke first, her voice low but intense. How could you destroy our home without even talking to us? It was my home, Amanda, not ours. You left it a long time ago. It was where I grew up, where Mom lived. How could you just tear it down like it meant nothing? It meant everything, I corrected her gently. That's why letting it go was so significant. It represented a life that doesn't exist anymore. Patricia is gone. You have your own family and home. The neighborhood has changed. It was time for me. Change too. Brian Ever, the financial analyst, cut in. What about the money? That property was worth a considerable amount. I looked at him steadily. The proceeds are in my investment accounts funding my retirement and eventual care needs, which I assume you'd prefer not to be burdened with. The jab hit home, his face flushing slightly. But all our stuff, Sophie said tearfully. Grandma's things, the treehouse, my garden. Her genuine grief touched me. I saved the important things, Sophie. Family photographs, special mementos. They're in storage until I can share them with you properly. Where are you living now? Jack asked the first practical question of the conversation. I bought a loft downtown. After selling the house, I traveled to Italy for a month, the trip Grandma and I always planned to take together. Italy. Amanda's voice cracked again. While we thought you were home watching our house, you were in Italy. I made sure your house was taken care of, I reminded her. Just as I've always taken care of everything for everyone else. But it was time to start taking care of myself, too. This is insane, she said, shaking her head. You're having some kind of crisis. No, Amanda. I'm having some kind of awakening. There's a difference. You had no right to erase our history like that. History isn't stored in lumber and drywall, I said firmly. It's carried in hearts and minds. I haven't erased anything except a structure that was keeping me trapped in the past. Jack, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. I think it's kind of cool, Mom. Grandpa decided to do what he wanted instead of what everyone expected. Isn't that what you always tell me about making my own choices? Amanda stared at her son, as if he'd betrayed her. This is different, Jack. This affects all of us. How? He challenged. We don't live there. We visit like twice a month for dinner. How does Grandpa selling his own house actually change anything for us? Out of the mouths of babes, I thought, surprised and touched by his defense. What about Christmas, Thanksgiving? Where will we gather as a family now? Amanda demanded. My new place has plenty of room, I offered. Or we could gather at your house for a change. Or try something completely new, a vacation together somewhere else. I emphasized the word together gently. My garden seeds, Sophie said suddenly, the ones from Grandma's flowers. Where will I plant them now? I have a community garden on my building's roof, I told her. You're welcome to come plant them there any time, or we could find a spot in your own backyard. She considered this, still sad, but less devastated. Could I see your new place? Of course. I'd love to show all of you. Brian, who had been calculating something in his head, asked, Did you at least get full market value for the property? Above market, I assured him. I had excellent professional advice. This seemed to satisfy some concern of his, though Amanda still looked shattered. I just can't believe you would do something so drastic without even discussing it with us. Like planning a family vacation to Hawaii without discussing it with me, I countered gently. She flinched. That was different? Yes, it was. That was a family decision that excluded family. This was a personal decision about my own property and life. Mom, Jack said quietly. I think Grandpa's right. Amanda looked around the table, perhaps realizing she had less support than expected. I need time to process this, she finally said, standing abruptly. We should go. Can I see Grandpa's new place first? Sophie asked, a small act of rebellion that surprised everyone. Amanda hesitated, then nodded stiffly. Fine. Text me the address. I'll pick you up in an hour. She and Brian left, but Jack decided to stay with his sister. I want to see the loft, too, he said, with the defiance particular to teenagers establishing independence. As we walked the few blocks to my building, the children peppered me with questions about Italy, my new home, and what I'd saved from the old house. Their resilience and adaptability made me wonder why adults so often struggled with change that children took in stride. My loft impressed them immediately. This is so much cooler than the old house, Jack declared, examining the exposed brick and industrial lighting. Sophie found Patricia's reading chair by the window. You kept Grandma's chair, she said with relief. Some things are too precious to let go, I told her. Would you like to see what else I kept? I showed them the carefully packed boxes of family photographs and mementos I'd set aside for them. Sophie found the illustrated botany books she remembered, while Jack was thrilled that I'd saved the architectural models from my study. Mom said you had a breakdown or something, Jack commented, as he examined a scale model of a skyscraper I'd designed. But this doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like you're actually doing great. Change can be scary for people who aren't ready for it, I explained. Your mom has a certain image of me, as her father, as your grandfather, and this doesn't fit that image. Well, I think it's awesome, he declared, and I still want to learn about architecture. Anytime, I promised. My offer stands. When Amanda arrived to collect them, she remained in the car, unwilling to see my new home. The children went down to her animated about what they'd seen. Through the lobby windows, I could see her tight expression as they talked over each other excitedly. It would take time, I knew. For her, the house represented security and continuity. Its absence forced her to confront not just change, but her own preconceptions about aging and family roles. I hoped eventually she would understand that my decision came from a place of self-respect, not rejection. As they drove away, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Sadness for the pain I'd caused, however unintentionally. Determination to forge this new path. Hope that our relationship could be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect rather than obligation and assumption. Frank called that evening. How did it go? About as expected, I replied. Amanda feels betrayed. Brian's concerned about the money. The kids are surprisingly supportive. And how are you feeling? I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I finally said. like I've set down a heavy load I didn't even realize I was carrying. That's what happens when you stop living for everyone else's expectations, Frank observed. It's about damn time, Timothy. I laughed, looking around my new space with its blend of cherished old pieces and exciting new possibilities. Yes, I agreed. It's about damn time. 2 months passed with minimal contact from Amanda. She texted occasionally about the children, but made excuses whenever I suggested getting together. I respected her need for space while continuing to build my new life. My loft became a true home. I joined my building's social committee, organizing weekly coffee gatherings in the community room. My architectural expertise proved valuable when the building considered renovations to the lobby, and soon I found myself informally consulting on various projects. My volunteer work with teenagers expanded to twice weekly sessions. Teaching young people about design principles and watching their creativity bloom became one of my greatest joys. Several students showed remarkable talent, including a young girl whose situation reminded me of my own working-class background. I began mentoring her, specifically helping her prepare a portfolio for college applications. At Frank's insistence, I tried new activities I'd always been curious about but never pursued. Cooking classes improved my culinary skills beyond the basics Patricia had taught me. A drawing course helped refine my architectural sketching into more artistic expression. I even tried ballroom dancing, finding unexpected pleasure in the structured movement and social interaction. Throughout this period of growth, I maintained gentle contact with Jack and Sophie through texts and occasional video calls when Amanda wasn't around. I never asked them to keep secrets from their mother, but appreciated their efforts to maintain our connection. Then, one Saturday morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, Jack stood there alone, a backpack slung over his shoulder. Jack, this is a surprise. Does your mother know you're here? He shifted uncomfortably. Sort of. I told her I was meeting friends downtown, which is technically true later. But I wanted to talk to you first. Then I invited him in, offering breakfast, which he eagerly accepted. As he devoured pancakes at my kitchen island, he explained his visit. I've been thinking a lot about what happened with the house and everything. Mom's still really upset, but I think she's being unfair. You didn't do anything wrong. It's complicated, Jack. The house represented something important to your mother. Yeah, but you're a person, not a house, he said with teenage bluntness. Anyway, I came because I wanted to ask if your offer still stands, about teaching me architecture stuff. His question touched me deeply. Absolutely. I'd love to. Cool. I was thinking maybe weekends. If that works for you, I could tell Mom I'm doing SAT prep downtown. I considered his suggestion carefully. I'd be happy to teach you, Jack, but I don't want to encourage lying to your mother. How about this? I'll reach out to her again. Suggest that you and I spend some time together on a project and see if she's ready to thaw a little. He looked doubtful, but agreed. We spent the next few hours looking through my architectural books and discussing basic principles. His natural aptitude was evident, reminding me of my own early passion for the field. When it was time for him to meet his friends, I walked him to the lobby. I'll talk to your mother this week, I promised. Good luck with that, he said skeptically. That evening I called Amanda. After several rings, I expected voicemail, but she answered. Dad. Her voice was guarded but not hostile. Amanda, I'm calling because Jack visited me today. A sharp intake of breath. He said he was meeting friends. He did that too later, but he came to talk to me about architecture. He's interested in learning more, and I'd like to teach him. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she said, He hasn't stopped talking about your new place since he saw it, or about that trip to Italy you took. I'd be happy to show you the loft anytime, I offered. That's not the point. Her voice tightened. You just changed everything without warning. Do you understand how that felt? To come home and find our childhood house just gone? I do, I said gently, and I'm sorry for the pain it caused you, but not for the decision itself. Another long silence. Sophie has a school project, she finally said, about family history. She wants to interview you. I'd be honored, I replied, recognizing the small olive branch for what it was. She has a half day next Friday. I could drop her at your place for a few hours. That would be wonderful. When we hung up, I felt a tentative hope. The following Friday, Sophie arrived with a notebook full of questions about family history. Her project had expanded beyond the original assignment into a genuine exploration of her roots. Mom said not to ask about the house, she confided. But I still don't understand why you sold it. I chose my words carefully. Sometimes Sophie places can become like comfortable old clothes. They fit us perfectly at one point in our lives, but as we change, they don't serve us the same way anymore. The house was perfect for raising your mom from my life with your grandmother. But after Grandma died, it started to feel like it was holding me in the past instead of helping me move forward. She considered this thoughtfully. Like when I kept wearing my favorite sneakers, even after they were too small, and gave me blisters. Exactly like that. I smiled at her perfect analogy. But you kept the important stuff, she noted, glancing at Patricia's reading chair. The most important things aren't things at all, I told her. They're memories, relationships, love. Those come with us, wherever we go. Her interview lasted hours, extending beyond school questions into genuine curiosity about family stories and my own childhood. When Amanda came to collect her, she hovered awkwardly in the doorway. Would you like to come in? I offered. Sophie and I made cookies. To my surprise, she nodded stiffly and entered. Her eyes scanned the space, taking in how I'd blended familiar family pieces with the contemporary setting. It's nice, she admitted reluctantly. Different. Like me, I suggested with a small smile. Something in her posture softened slightly. Sophie, get your things. We need to go. As they prepared to leave, Amanda paused. Jack mentioned you might teach him some architecture basics. If that's okay with you, I replied carefully. She nodded once. He could come on Saturday afternoons. Brian has golf then anyway. It was a small concession, but an important one. That would be perfect. The following Saturday, Jack arrived promptly at 1, eager to begin. We started with basic drafting techniques, his natural spatial awareness making him a quick study. When Amanda came to pick him up, she actually came upstairs rather than waiting in the car. How did it go? She asked, addressing both of us. Grandpa showed me how to draw a building to scale, Jack enthused. It's way harder than it looks, but also really cool. Your son has a genuine talent, I told her. With some development, he could excel in this field. A complicated emotion crossed her face. Pride in her son, mixed with lingering resentment toward me. If that's what he wants to pursue, she said non-committally. Mom, can I come back next Saturday? Jack asked. She hesitated, then nodded. I suppose so. The weekly sessions with Jack became a fixture, and soon Sophie began joining us occasionally, less interested in architecture, but enjoying the creative environment and snacks we always prepared. Gradually, Amanda's pickups extended into brief conversations, then cups of coffee, then longer discussions. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. After Jack and Sophie had been visiting for about 2 months, Amanda arrived to find us all laughing over a spectacular failure of a model building Jack had constructed, which had collapsed in a heap of cardboard and glue. Back to the drawing board, I was telling him. That's the most important lesson in architecture, learning from what doesn't work. Amanda watched silently, then said, "That's what you always told me when I made mistakes growing up." Back to the drawing board, Mandy. The use of my old nickname for her hung in the air between us. "Why don't you stay for dinner?" I suggested impulsively. I was planning to make Patricia's lasagna recipe. To my surprise, she nodded. "Brian's at a conference this weekend. That would be nice." Dinner was initially awkward, but gradually warmed as the children shared stories of their school adventures, and I recounted more tales from my Italian journey. Amanda remained mostly quiet until the kids went to explore the rooftop garden after dessert. "You seem happy," she finally said, sounding almost confused. "I am," I confirmed. "Happier than I've been in a long time. I still don't understand why you had to sell the house. To tear it down." "I know," I acknowledged. "From your perspective, it must have seemed cruel, or at least extreme. But Amanda, when you told me I was too old to join your family vacation, something crystallized for me. I realized I'd become nothing more than a caretaker in your eyes, of the house of memories of a past that only existed for you in visits home." "That's not fair," she protested, but with less conviction than before. "Perhaps not entirely," I conceded, "but there was truth in it. After your mother died, I tried to maintain everything exactly as it had been, hoping to preserve some connection to her, to our family as it used to be. But in doing so, I was stuck, not living, just maintaining. So you had to destroy everything. Not everything, just a structure. The memories, the love, the connections. Those couldn't be demolished by a wrecking ball. But I needed to physically break free to find myself again." She was silent for a long moment. "Jack says you're dating someone, a woman from your building." I smiled, thinking of Martha, the retired literature professor I'd been seeing for several weeks. "We've had dinner a few times. She's interesting, intelligent, alive to the world in a way that reminds me of your mother. And that doesn't dishonor Mom's memory. Patricia would have hated for me to be alone forever," I said gently. "She told me to choose joy, Amanda. That was one of the last things she said to me." Tears filled Amanda's eyes. She was always better at letting go than I am. "It's not about letting go of what matters," I told her. "It's about carrying it forward in ways that allow for new growth." She nodded slowly, dabbing at her eyes. "I miss her. I miss the house. I miss knowing exactly where everything was, and that it would always be there." "I understand. But nothing stays the same forever, not even buildings designed to last generations. Change is the only constant." "The architect's philosophical wisdom?" she asked, with a hint of the teasing tone I remembered from her younger years. "Something like that." I smiled. When the children returned from the roof garden, Sophie bubbling with excitement about planting her seeds in my section of the community garden, Amanda surprised me by asking, "Would it be okay if we came for dinner again next week? Maybe Brian could join us too." "I'd like that very much," I replied. As they prepared to leave, Amanda hesitated, then gave me a quick, awkward hug, the first physical contact we'd had in months. "Dad, I'm still not entirely okay with what you did," she admitted. "But I'm trying to understand." "That's all I can ask for," I told her. Over the following months, our relationship slowly rebuilt itself on new foundations. The weekly architectural lessons for Jack expanded to include family dinners. Brian, initially resistant, gradually warmed to my new life when he realized my financial independence meant they would never need to support me. For Thanksgiving, Amanda surprised me by suggesting we celebrate at my loft rather than their home. "The kids love it here," she explained, "and we can all help cook in your fancy kitchen." The holiday wasn't perfect. Emotions still ran close to the surface at times, but it was honest in a way our interactions hadn't been in years. When Amanda found me alone on the balcony after dinner, she joined me in looking out over the city lights. "I'm sorry about what I said," she offered quietly. "About you being too old for the trip. It was cruel and untrue." "Thank you," I accepted simply. "Next year, we're planning to visit the Grand Canyon," she continued. "The kids were wondering if you might want to join us, if you're not too busy with your Italian girlfriend." She added the last with a small smile that reminded me of Patricia. "I'd like that," I replied. "And Martha's Swiss, not Italian." Her genuine laugh warmed me more than the evening air. Later, as the family prepared to leave, Jack reminded me of our next architecture lesson, while Sophie showed me the seedlings sprouting in paper cups she'd taken home from our garden project. As I closed the door behind them, I felt Patricia's presence more strongly than I had in years, not as a ghost from the past, but as a continuing influence on our shared future. The house we'd built together was gone, but the home we'd created in each other's hearts remained evolving into something new, but equally precious. At 68, I finally learned that sometimes you have to let go of the house to build a home. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice that others didn't understand, but that you knew was right for you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more life experiences that might just help you navigate your own journey. Remember, it's never too late to rebuild your life on your own terms. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to choose joy even when that choice isn't the easiest path.